And every time we make another one of these videos, I find even weirder ones. So buckle up, it's not gonna be a normal one. Let's count down the top 5 weirdest SCP monsters in containment, part 3. Coming in at number 5, we got SCP-007. Oh yeah, this is a good place to start. SCP-007 dates all the way back to 2008, before a lot of the SCP protocols and practices we're familiar with today were even a pipe dream. No one could have predicted how huge and popular the Foundation would grow to be, especially when a good deal of the anomalies were like this. Not to say SCP-007 is bad, it just doesn't have the creepy viral potential or the wild sprawling storytelling of some of the more popular new entries. Right, so I should probably focus on the task at hand. SCP-007 is also known as the Abdominal Planet. That's not the name of a cheap core-centric gym, it's actually a pretty accurate description of the anomaly. Somewhere inside of one of the Foundation's many facilities there is a man, and this man is missing most of his abdomen. Skin, muscles, bones, all missing. But he doesn't seem to be particularly negatively affected by the lack of essential body parts. In the negative space here, there is a sphere composed of water and soil. Kinda just floats there, like one of those globes held up by magnetism. Coming in at number 4, SCP-686. I'm not so sure that I want to talk about this one out loud. It's milk. Like, you'd be hard-pressed to find more than a couple minor differences between this substance and regular milk that you can get at the grocery store. Yeah, sure, there's a few extra vitamins in it, and it causes people to become human cows, but otherwise, it's pretty normal. Wait, what? Oh, yeah, I guess I should elaborate more on that bit. So, this milk is by most measurements indistinguishable from regular milk. However, if a human drinks this stuff, they begin to develop an enormous udder at the front of their body. It starts off with their regular milk-producing organs getting larger and producing more of 686. If they're regularly milked, this is as far as it'll go. However, if you're not up at dawn every morning like a good farmer should be, the milk mutation will develop further. Over the next little while, the affected individual will find that they're developing little fleshy spouts all down their front, which will eventually swell and shift into an enormous set of udders. Just like a cow. Yikes. If the mutation is allowed to progress to this point, it won't just be physical similarities any longer either. The affected individual will start to act more like a cow, too. People under the influence of 686 are said to be more docile and dead-eyed than other humans. They'll just...
This'll get you out of your seat. Power Play is available on NRL Same Game Multis. Just hit the button and watch your odds get bigger. Power Play your Same Game Multi with Sportsbet.
Wander around waiting to be milked, and they'll produce 40 liters of the stuff per day, too. Good lord. And there's no going back, either. Once you drink this milk, you are in it for the long run. Folks at the Foundation have tried to surgically remove all of the flesh produced by the addition of udders, but it'll all grow back in due time. And if they do excise all of it, the person in question will be back to their milk-making ways relatively soon. For now, the Foundation has just tried to keep all this milk under wraps and all the folks producing it penned up somewhere. Most people would think that's the best course of action, but there are some Doja Cat and anime fans who might think differently. Coming in at number 3, we've got SCP-279. And here I was thinking that I was done with especially questionable SCPs for the day. Don't get me wrong, the top 2 on the list are weird, but I don't feel as weird talking about them. Funny how that works. Right, so SCP-279 is a plastic vibrator. For the purposes labeled suicide. And that's where the extra oomph is needed. Crank it up to 11 and you can disintegrate stuff. It'll vibrate so fast that whatever it's in contact with will lose structural cohesion. You know when Thanos snapped and people faded into dust? Yeah, this handy little machine can do that too. It was found after descending through 30 floors in an apartment building and liquefying whoever was using it originally. I don't know how they got their hands on it or why they would turn it up to suicide. It must have been one hell of a muscle cramp. Coming in at number 2, we've got SCP-1233, Moon Champion, Champion of the Moon. I love this guy. Every 4 or 5 years, a humanoid in an old-school spacesuit shows up somewhere. This usually means he'll come crashing down from orbit, destroying plenty upon impact with the ground. Once he touches down, Moon Champion will head towards the nearest small town. He won't take a direct route, though. He'll meander his way towards that little bastion of society, doing weird things along the way. He'll inspect farm equipment, chase insects, attempt to greet small animals, try to eat plants, and inevitably give up because they won't pass through his helmet, and more. What a charming chap. Once he makes it to town, he'll do his best to convince everyone he's there to help. However, his superhuman strength and poor understanding of human socialization means that Moon Champion usually ends up destroying some stuff and upsetting some people. Walking into traffic causing collisions, smashing through glass storefronts to inspect items for sale, stacking parked cars like the world's most expensive Jenga tower, and collecting dogs as currency to purchase more dogs are all examples of strange and fascinating Moon Champion behavior. All in a day's work, right? He'll also try to explain his duties as Moon Champion, but he never ends up making any sense. It's pretty funny to hear him try, though. All in all, if you want a really funny SCP entry to read, this is the one. Just make sure you read the security footage log and do your best to find all the tales. Moon Champion knows how to adventure and party.
Huh, wow. That's incredible. What the heck?
Morty, do you realize how ridiculous that sounds?
Yeah, pretty crazy story,
Are
Morty.
you serious?
And finally, at number 1, we've got SCP-4233. The arrival of SCP-4233 was like the announcement of a spin-off of one's favorite show years after it was cancelled. It's definitely not the same thing, and it might be a little late, but it still brings some of that elusive joy to the table. We talked about Moon Champion today, now get ready for Sea Champion. Oh yeah. Another impenetrable suit-wearing humanoid causing well-meaning destruction on his mission to do God knows what. Absolutely legendary. This time around, our
G'day, punters. You can now get Sportsbet's Android app on Google Play. Download it now.
champion wears an old-school diving suit. Think Big Daddy from BioShock. Thankfully, he's a little less aggressive on average, just as destructive though. Every once in a while, Sea Champion will emerge from the sea and begin to walk in a straight line towards another coast. During this walk, he will have no regard for the world around him. He'll walk straight through obstacles like logs, parked vehicles, walls, and more. However, it seems as though he will do his best to avoid trampling civilians and large plants. Nice. When asked what his mission is, Sea Champion claims to be looking for his brother. Can you guess who that might be? If his brother needs help fighting monsters on the moon, then he'll help him. Otherwise, he'll request help to fight the beasts at the bottom of the sea. Like a big, bloody, bestial family reunion. Let's just hope the Champion brothers keep their fights far away from us. Plenty of crossfire, I'm sure. Is your mind sufficiently boggled? I figured the weirdness of those SCPs managed to cover a wide variety of topics. So, what'd you think of the list? Did you know about these oddities? Are there weirder SCPs that I should be covering? Make sure you let me know down in the comments. Speaking of comments, let's take a look at some of your more preserved ones from the top 5 scary horror movie demons that you're glad aren't real. The Unituber says number 6, Succubus, the terrifying entity who plucks one sock from each dryer load and transports it to hell. See, but that one is real.
When the object now known as SCP-5881 was discovered by Foundation personnel, he immediately caught the attention of scientists, since this anomaly seemed to be a typical 26-year-old guy by the name of Ben Hennessy, who suddenly experienced the appearance of 3 incorporeal versions of himself. One day, as Ben was drinking at a bar, one such doppelganger appeared right next to him, frightening all the other customers. Foundation personnel intercepted police communications in time and managed to quickly extradite the man to their territory, which was clearly for the best. Because if he'd been taken to the police station, then they most likely would have assumed he'd gone mad, or that he'd simply had too much to drink. And his doppelgangers would have continued to torment Ben until he lost his mind. Shortly after SCP-5881 was placed in a Foundation cell, it became clear that his disembodied doppelgangers posed no real threat, either to himself or others. They're sometimes rather harsh in addressing him, but that's about it. So SCP-5881 was assigned to the lowest risk class, Euclid. However, the comparative harmlessness of this anomaly didn't stop Foundation scientists from asking many questions, primary among them being, why did this happen? First of all, why did these incorporeal doppelgangers appear? And second, why are they the way they are? One of his doppelgangers considered himself a businessman. Another considered himself as resources they needed to separate. But then, that brings up some justifiable apprehension. What if that could happen to others as well, and not just to SCP-5881? if it becomes clear that this personality separation is a mass phenomenon, then the Foundation will need to significantly increase their activity. But what about the particulars of each of Ben's doppelgangers? Why did they turn out so different from each other? Each of the copies most likely embodied a set of constantly suppressed manifestations of Ben's personality. You can judge for yourself. SCP-5881-2 poses as a major in the British Army and is aggressive and commanding. SCP-5881-1, who portrays himself as a businessman, is arrogant and ambitious, while SCP-5881-3 claims to be a university professor. He's boring and has a tendency to try to teach those around him. If, in the course of his 26 years of life, Ben didn't allow these inclinations to come to the surface, then it's clear why his doppelgangers now manifest themselves so actively. However, as different as these three copies of SCP-5881 may be, they all have the desire to improve their host. His incorporeal versions force Ben to develop his intellect and improve his physical fitness while simultaneously demeaning him and putting him down as a student. They teach him various disciplines, whether he likes it or not, and they also control his absorption of the material. And what's most interesting is that it seems as though his doppelgangers have boundless knowledge in all disciplines. This last fact attracts the special attention of Foundation researchers. If confirmed, then SCP-5881's doppelgangers may be a unique discovery for science. But at the moment, the use of SCP-5881's split personalities for the Foundation's benefit is only planned, as the doppelgangers expressly refuse to interact with anyone other than Ben. It's so far unclear why they are so actively striving to improve SCP-5881. Perhaps further systematic monitoring of the subject could illuminate the answer. What do you think the incorporeal versions of SCP-5881
You
are?
want a drink?
Were they really caused by the young
Yes,
man's unstable
please.
psyche,
Okay.
or could there have been outside interference?
Here's
Share
your
what you
drink.
think in the comments below the video. And don't forget, subscribe to our channel. In the meantime, we'll work on preparing new videos for you on interesting and
Here's
mysterious
some
facts.
Coke. Cool, thanks. You're welcome. Okay, see ya. See ya.
Advertising on YouTube helps me reach engaged customers like Jenna, who's been searching for landscapers on Google. So when she watches YouTube, my ad's there with a link to schedule now. I found my customers on YouTube. Get started with YouTube advertising and find yours too.
Let's watch some more YouTube. Why not?
The teenage girl sat alone in the chamber. She had no idea what she was doing there. The last thing she remembered was her Korean parents taking her to see a doctor because they thought something was wrong with her. The room was white, sterile, and the only piece of furniture was the chair she was sitting on. She waited for what seemed like an eternity. She was beginning to think she would be there forever when she suddenly heard footsteps outside of the chamber. Someone was coming. Maybe they were going to let her go home. The door opened and a man came into the room. He was wearing a white coat. He introduced himself as Dr. Klein and told her that he stopped its attack. It is hypothesized that the definitive kill me in some way took precedence over the more ambiguous attack. It was midnight, but the 5-year-old girl was still struggling to fall asleep. She had been hearing noises all night, rustling, scratching, and all these sounds were coming from under her bed. For the 5th time that night, she rushed from her bedroom and into her parents' room. She couldn't bear it anymore. It was just too scary.
Mama,
She cried. Her mother jumped up in alarm.
what is it? There's something under my bed.
Her mother sighed.
There's nothing under your bed, Betty. Just go back to sleep. There is.
Finally, after much persuading, Betty managed to drag her mother over to her bedroom to look under her bed and check that there really wasn't anything there. When her mother knelt down, she could see nothing but a few old books and a stuffed teddy bear beneath the bed.
See?
She said, pulling out the teddy bear.
Nothing to worry about. Just an old teddy bear.
She put the teddy bear on the bed next to Betty, but Betty started to crawl away from the stuffed animal. She seemed uncomfortable. Come to think of it, her mother couldn't even remember buying the teddy bear. She didn't recognize it, but she passed it off as just her bad memory. Perhaps someone had sent it as a birthday gift one time. Now, get to sleep, Betty. She tucked her daughter into bed, with the teddy bear beside her, keeping her comfort. Betty was eyeing the teddy bear warily. Her mother left the room, closing the door silently. She crawled back into bed, where her husband was still sleeping soundly. Seemingly a few seconds later, she heard a scream. Betty. The mother bolted from bed with her husband close behind, and together they ran into the bedroom. Betty was screaming from underneath her covers, and on top of her, miraculously standing upright, was the teddy bear. What the? Gasped Betty's father. Slowly, the teddy bear have called for an immediate change in classification to Keter. SCP-1048 is a small teddy bear, approximately 33 centimeters in height. Through testing, composition of the subject...
Barbie color magic mermaid!
Fuck
She's
off,
so
ads.
rainbow! From cool and pastel
I wish I
to
can
bright
skip
and
this
bold.
fucking
Rainbow
ad.
hair everywhere. Magical! Color change again! Barbie rainbow magic mermaid dolls, each sold separately.
Come on,
Color
come on,
change in warm
just
and icy
skip.
water. You
Come
can be
on.
anything.
Just hurry up and finish
Revealed
fucking
no
ad.
unusual qualities
There
that
we
make it
are.
discernible from
Good.
a non-sapient teddy bear. Subject is capable of moving of its own accord and can communicate through a small range
I
of gestures.
hate
The
Barbie.
subject regularly shows affection to individuals
every
who it's found
human
endearing by
person.
most people.
Every
Affection is
human.
usually given in the form of a hug to the lower
I hate
leg,
every
but the
living
subject has
being.
also been observed dancing, jumping in place, and in 2 separate events, it has even drawn childlike pictures from staff. All Foundation personnel that have interacted with the subject have responded positively to its affection, even D-Class with normally sociopathic tendencies. Attempts at direct communication with SCP-1048 have not been considered successful. Though it is capable of simple gestures to indicate a yes or no answer, it will often not react to lines of questioning concerning its nature, or where it originated from. It is not known if this is simply because the subject does not know the answers, or because it does not want to answer. Though capable of drawing pictures, it has not used its art as a form of communication beyond showing affection, even when encouraged to do so. It is unknown how SCP-1048 appeared on Foundation grounds. There have not been many reports of the subject sighting in the outer world, but perhaps that is merely due to a lack of awareness from the public, or perhaps due to the sheer improbability of its existence. Personnel theorize any reports that have been made of the subject have been pushed under the rug on the basis that they must be mere hallucinations, or perhaps illusions brought out from childhood traumas. Currently, the Foundation is investigating any past reports of possible SCP-1048 sightings. The more anomalous behavior of the subject was not observed until approximately 7 months after it was originally secured. It is hypothesized that the subject is able to construct crude replicas of itself using various materials, by a process that has yet to be observed directly by Foundation staff. Dr. Carver has suggested that SCP-1048 uses its endearing qualities to lull those around it into a false sense of security, allowing it to collect materials to produce these creations. Currently, there are 3 known creations of the subject, designated SCP-1048-A, SCP-1048-B, and SCP-1048-C. The nature of these creations has been in stark contrast to the original subject's general behavior, as all have exhibited extreme violence towards humans. Before the incident that sparked its change in classification, SCP-1048 was initially allowed to roam freely through Site-24, as it appeared to pose no threat and had been observed to greatly improve the morale of personnel that interact with it. This was perhaps the biggest mistake made by Foundation personnel. As a result of this mistake, many lives were lost. Approximately 228 days after the subject was first discovered by the Foundation, SCP-1048-A was discovered wandering Site-24, accompanied by the subject. SCP-1048-A, hereby referred to as Replica A, resembles a teddy bear similar in size and shape to the subject, but it's made entirely out of human ears. Witnesses interviewed reported that it appeared the subject was giving a tour of Site-24 to Replica A. Dr. Carver was called to the scene, along with a security team. The security team arrived first and attempted to contain Replica A. The replica emitted a high-pitched shriek that inflicted intense pain in the eyes and ears of everyone in a 10-meter radius.
ear-like growths immediately began growing on those within 5 meters of the subject, covering their bodies in less than 20 seconds. Every person inflicted with this symptom died within 3 minutes, resulting in the death of many personnel, including the entire security team. Autopsies revealed the cause of death to be asphyxiation caused by an abundance of the ear-like growths manifesting in the mouths and trachea of all victims. The subject and Replica A fled the scene before Dr. Carver arrived and have not been contained since the incident, though sightings of both have been reported on multiple occasions. Shortly after this incident occurred, a researcher was discovered missing an ear. According to him, it was removed through unknown means while he was sleeping. No other victims of ear removal were found, so it is unclear if SCP-1048 obtained more ears from another source, or if it is capable of duplicating objects or materials. Approximately 2 months later, SCP-1048-B was discovered. Replica B was found by several Foundation staff members in the cafeteria of Site-24. The replica's appearance was nearly identical to SCP-1048, but it moved in an irregular, jerky manner. Witnesses reported that it appeared as if something was moving inside of Replica B. Subject made no attempt to interact initially, until a burst in its seams revealed what appeared to be the hand and arm of a human infant poking out and grasping at the air. At the sight of this, a female researcher screamed, and Replica B reacted by emitting a high-pitched cry similar to that of a human infant. The subject then attempted to stab the screaming researcher with its bare hands, causing massive internal damage. In the ensuing chaos, a security team was forced to terminate both the researcher and Replica B. Approximately 3 hours after this incident, a Foundation member was found unconscious and bleeding in her office. An abortion had been performed on her while she was sleeping, and the 8-month-old fetus was never found. It is hypothesized that SCP-1048 used the woman's unborn child to create Replica B. Information regarding the possible origin of Replica B is not to be leaked to the survivors currently undergoing therapy for the incident with Replica B, as Dr. Carver believes it would be extremely detrimental to their mental health and recovery. SCP-1048-C resembles a teddy bear similar to the original subject, but composed entirely of rusted metal scraps. Replica C was first sighted by Dr. Carver in his office while writing up a report on the SCP-1048 incident. Replica C fled the room when it noticed Dr. Carver observing it. In the attempted pursuit of the creature, Dr. Carver...
In this winter snow lives the legendary Winter Alpha Werewolf. She's the strongest werewolf on our Minecraft server, and every wolf bends to her command. As the Alpha Winter Wolf, she has the most amazing powers and takes care of the winter pups. But when werewolf hunters threaten to take away Winter and the puppies, it's up to the Alpha to put them in their place. Who will win? The hunters on the hunt or the Winter Alpha and her pack? Let's find out.
Witnessed the death and maiming of several Foundation personnel, as the subject exhibited extreme violence during its escape. Replica C has not been encountered since this initial sighting, and it is unknown whether it still resides somewhere within Site-24. The origins of any materials possibly used to construct Replica C by the original subject are also unknown at this time. In his report to O5 personnel, Dr. Carver wrote, "I cannot stress this enough. The damn thing jumped right through those poor people." The whereabouts of SCP-1048 are currently unknown, though it is still believed to be somewhere in Site-24. The subject is to be secured for containment, but any creation of SCP-1048s should be destroyed on-site, unless further evidence warrants less extreme actions. No teddy bears are to be allowed in Site-24 to prevent any confusion or mistaken identity. Any object that resembles a teddy bear is to be reported to the security team immediately. Upon this report, Dr. Carver has left a note to all viewers. "This is not a joke. We have no idea what SCP-1048's full capabilities are. Who knows how many of the damn things are out there by now." Some researchers have noticed how SCP-1048 appears similar to SCP-2295 in appearance, although they seem to be exact opposites in function. Possibilities of a common origin are currently being investigated between the two objects. Extreme caution is to be taken if SCP-1048-A or SCP-1048-C are encountered again. So, what did you think of that SCP case? Beware of teddy bears. They're not as cuddly and cute as you may think.
imagine being a Roman warrior back in the day. Some of the stuff they were subjected to was brutal, from intense and unethical punishments to drinking warriors' blood for good health. Let's talk about these and more only in today's video. Top 10 dark things the Roman warriors did. Starting off this countdown, we have the discipline. So the poor Roman warriors were disciplined through fear. If they were a coward in battle or were slacking while on duty, they would be stoned. Some would survive, others wouldn't. Even if they committed minor offenses, they would receive severe punishment. So basically, they were living in fear. They would always have to act strong and courageous, or else they would be severely injured. In fact, whips were often common at Roman military camps. Another cruel punishment would be slowly breaking the soldiers' ribs one by one. That is incredibly cruel and painful. They lost a lot of their warriors from these punishments. In our ninth spot, we have the mouthwash. And if you guys are liking this video so far, make sure to give it a big thumbs up. Also, if you want to see a Q&A, then make sure to go and check out Most Amazing Elite, because right after this video, I'm doing a little Q&A answering your burning questions. So back in ancient Rome, urine was considered valuable. Sounds crazy and disgusting, I know. But they had people whose job was to go around collecting pee from public urinals, or they would go door to door asking people to do their business in a vat. Why? Well, they used this fluid for a lot of stuff. They would clean their clothes in it, and it's also how they clean their teeth. I know. They used to use pee as mouthwash. I want to just gag thinking about it. But according to them, they thought it was a way to keep their teeth pearly and clean. Can you imagine? No. And like other people's pee? No. Anyway, sorry. Moving on, at number 8, we have the communal sponge. If you thought that point was bad, wait till you hear this one. So the public toilets in ancient Rome were absolutely disgusting. Sure, they had a pretty advanced sewer system for their time, but believe me, it wasn't pretty. In fact, it was said that it was hardly ever cleaned, if even at all. These toilets were shared with dozens of other people, but you were given one sponge on a stick. That sponge was used to wipe your behind. The sponge was never cleaned. So everyone was just sharing that dirty sponge wiper. I told you this point was gonna be bad. I just feel dirty talking about it. I need to go home and take a shower or something. Like other people on your bum.